Character select.
You're sitting at home alone, and completely bored out of your mind. There's seemingly nothing to do, but as you scroll through your feed, something you see crosses the right wires and makes you remember an old but fun experience. This might be all you need. You go down to the closest retro video game store and decide to pick up something like an NES, or maybe its super counterpart. Perhaps a Game Boy to catch some pocket monsters, or if you're in a particularly smashing mood, you might get your hands on a Nintendo 64. It doesn't really matter though. You notice that the man at the register is acting kinda strange, but you pay it no mind, as he gives you the console and the chosen games for free. You can ignore the worried look in his eyes and his unnerving smile as you just got the deal of a lifetime. Your childhood is back in your possession with no extra charge. It's starting to get dark, so you make your way home. Once you arrive, you quickly plug in the system and put in the cartridge of choice, though while you were hoping to re-experience old memories that bring back the simpler days, you'll soon realize that you just booted up a memory tainted with realistic blood.
Super Mario 64 Damned.
I'm sure a lot of people would click away at seeing the number 10 spot, Super Mario 64 Damned, but I would like to introduce a new concept before getting into the story. Creepypastas don't need to be scary. I like when creepypastas are as ridiculous and fun as possible. It's something that I miss from the older days of creepypasta, from all the monsters and fun stories that, while not scary, they are entertaining. I'd much rather have another Sonic.exe than I am guy, and there is weird stain on the wall, and then I go bonkers and die or something.
And Super Mario 64 Damned is exactly that. It starts the same way as any other video game creepypasta. A couple is talking about their childhood games, as the topic of Super Mario 64 came up. They decided to go down to a retro game store, owned by the main character's uncle, to pick up a Nintendo 64, Mario 64, and a few other games for the console. Much to their surprise, the store owner decided to give them the console completely for free, due to the complaints from previous owners. They went home, and already the game started acting strange, as it crashed when they attempted to delete some save files. This is nothing in comparison to what they witnessed in-game. Gore, multiple dead Marios, tortured characters, and disturbing visuals that were not in the original game, even going as far as the main character seeing themselves be involved in the mayhem, as they slowly begin to witness something outside of the game, in the darkness of his own home.
If the screen of your Nintendo Switch cracks, stop playing. Our main character is excited to play the remake of Link's Awakening, which they had just got downloaded for their Nintendo Switch, but unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. As they got themselves something to eat and try to get comfortable in their bed, they knock over their Switch. As it crashed onto the ground, the device had received some damage on its handheld screen. It cracked up, but it was still functional. The main character covers the crack in tape and continues playing. This is until Link stands in place, looks up, and points at the screen, letting out a loud scream. The main character had gotten a large cut on their face, with a piece of the Switch's screen stuck inside the wound. As time goes on, and the screen face of the Switch cracked up more, so did the player's own face. Continuously bleeding, pieces of the console found inside his mouth as more cracks would appear. Most of the time, they wouldn't even notice. As they went to work at a gas station, a young girl looked up at their face and screamed in terror. Their face mask was drenched in blood as the wound only got bigger. Even after they cleaned up the wounds and pulled out every piece they could find, it would only get worse and worse. It was so distracting that even the NPCs of Link's Awakening would notice as well, and have the same reaction as Link did. Always remember, be careful with your belongings. They might not be the only ones suffering the damage.
Friend request, Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing New Horizons has been met with extreme success to become the second highest selling game in Japan, only behind Pokemon Red and Blue, and the second best selling Switch title, only being beaten by Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's no surprise that the game is popular amongst many in the gaming community, especially with the community aspect of visiting other people's islands and playing with friends across the globe. But this story, Friend Request, brings this function down a dark path. A couple decided to buy a Switch and a copy of Animal Crossing New Horizons, as it quickly became one of their favorites, constantly playing the game, visiting islands, and getting those Nook Miles. Wanting to find special fruit that had proven to be difficult to come across, the main character visits Reddit in hopes of getting advice. One user, by the name of Alex, has what they're looking for, and even offers a gift in the form of an in-game furniture. They were invited to the island, and after the transaction was made, Alex asked, "Friends?" The main character agreed, but this only leads to what almost feels like an obsessive stalker story, as Alex would constantly ask to play and even getting aggressive and destroying their island. But after trying to report Alex to Nintendo, Nintendo came back to him with some grim news. Alex is not a registered user, and his account doesn't exist. Going further, he decides to contact a friend of Alex, who notifies them that Alex has been dead for quite some time, and never had the opportunity to play the game. Which only adds the question, who is this user, and why don't they exist?
Pokemon Lost Silver. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver are highly respected throughout the Pokemon community. Many would often refer to them as the best games in the franchise. The anticipation of this game would leave one player through a unique experience, to say the least. After the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, this player orders a copy on Amazon. Impatient with the delivery, he goes to GameStop to get a used copy of the original Pokemon Silver, primarily to whet his appetite before the remix would arrive at his door. This copy forced a player to an already existing save file named ... with a 100% completion, all 16 badges, all 251 Pokedex entries, and maxed out time and money. His team consisted of Unknown that were put in a certain order to convey a message, along with a Pokemon named Hurry. The Unknown and Pokemon nicknames are used throughout the story to give messages and warnings to the player. Speaking of which, as the player progresses through his save, his trainer's body would slowly fall apart, as the game would show records that wouldn't even be possible in the normal game, such as having at least 24 badges now. He encounters Red from Pokemon Red and Blue as they battle with a level 255 Pikachu and a level 100 Celebi. The battle ends with the both of them dying. Despite having so many badges and meeting so many accomplishments that these trainers come by, none can escape the inevitability of death and being forgotten by later generations.
Mario. Instead of being a lost game or a possessed cartridge, this story takes a more down-to-earth approach, as it's based on a ROM hack instead. ROM hacks are where an individual takes the ROM of a game and alters it in some way to create a different experience. Before the days of Mario Maker, Super Mario World was one of the most ROM-hacked games out there, thanks to programs like Lunar Magic being made specifically for Mario World hacks. And thanks to the 2000s era of YouTube, where users would play rage-based Mario hacks such as Kaizo Mario, the game only became more popular in the ROM hack scene. This particular ROM, simply called Mario, isn't rage-based or experimental like most other ROMs. It's something entirely different. For starters, there are no enemies, muted colors, rude and spiteful messages aimed at Mario, and an intro that claims that he's the one who kidnapped Princess Peach. Mario is now in a hell of his own making. After defeating the first Koopaling, Iggy, the message that comes while Mario destroys the world's castle is altered. This time, it describes a gory, brutal murder scene where the victim loses their eyes. But that's not all. There's also a Word document called 3007014 that's nothing but jumbled up nonsense. But if converted into a JPG, it shows a grotesque image of a red screaming face, but with no eyes.
Pokemon Creepy Black. There are 4 versions of the original Kanto region Pokemon titles on Game Boy. Pokemon Red and Green were the first versions of the game to be released in Japan, with the only difference being that some Pokemon can only be caught in one version than the other. When the game was released in the States, it got some modifications, including better sprites in comparison to Pokemon Green. The States got Red, but Green was replaced with Blue. Yellow, also known as Special Pikachu Edition, is an enhanced version of the original games, but instead of choosing between Squirtle, Charmander, and Bulbasaur, you only have a Pikachu as your starter. This Pikachu cannot evolve, be released, and will follow you on the map much like Ash's Pikachu in the anime series. But this story is about a 5th version called Pokemon Creepy Black, or simply Pokemon Black. Found at a flea market, this version of the game is similar to Red and Blue, as you can choose your starter. But by default, you have a new Pokemon in your party, Ghost, using a sprite of the ghost seen in Lavender Town's Pokemon Tower. But while that ghost was of a Marowak killed by Team Rocket, this ghost seems to be something different entirely. Its only ability is Curse, but unlike the normal version of the move, this version is essentially a one-hit kill. Emphasis on the kill. Whenever the move is activated, the screen goes black as the cry of the Pokemon you are facing is heard. When the screen returns, the Pokemon is no longer on screen, implying that Ghost had killed them. The move can also be used on any NPC. If this happens, then they will be replaced with a tombstone. Even after beating the game, the nightmare is far from over. Time has gone by, and all that's left is an older version of the player and Ghost. The last battle is between these two. The only move the player can use is Struggle, which harms you. Ghost doesn't do anything back. Like, it doesn't want to. Perhaps maybe it has made a bond with the player. But as the health bar goes down and the smallest sliver is left, Ghost finally uses Curse on you, either frustrated with the attack, or as simply a way to put you out of your misery. After this, the save file wipes itself, as the only option is to start all over.
Lavender Town Syndrome. The bright and colorful world of Pokemon, full of fantastical creatures, trainers ready to battle, and new places to visit. But one location stands out from the rest: Lavender Town. For starters, it's the only major town that doesn't have a gym. Instead, it's got the Pokemon Tower, A tower that's essentially a graveyard for dead Pokemon, in case you wanted your childhood wonder to be destroyed halfway through the game. It's also the only one that has this creepy music that has become synonymous with video game creepypastas and internet horror. But did you know that the original version of this song was different before being altered for later releases, including the international release? Rumors went about the music change and the town itself for years, starting what is known as Lavender Town Syndrome, as it claims that the original version of the song featured high-pitched binaural beats that only kids could hear, causing headaches, migraines, nosebleeds, and so on. It even goes as far to say that this song was the cause of a major rise in suicide cases throughout Japan in the late 1990s. Whether or not any of this is true is beyond me, as this is more of a theory and rumor that just became a creepypasta. Either way, it's been one of the most popular Pokemon creepypastas out there.
NES Godzilla. Quite possibly one of the most popular and respected stories about the Nintendo Entertainment System is NES Godzilla, based on the NES title, Godzilla, Monster of Monsters, released back in 1988. It starts the same way as most other video game-related horror stories, with a main character searching for a copy of his old childhood nostalgia. He finds a used copy of the Godzilla title, but the game is far from what he remembers. The game itself is a side-scroller, where the main objective is to make your way to the opposing monsters and defeat every single one of them. You can play as either Godzilla or Mothra, as you face off several monsters from past films, such as Hedorah from 1971's Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Mechagodzilla from 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah from 1964's Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and several others. But the version of the game that he's playing features monsters from movies that haven't even come out yet, including Biollante, who wouldn't even make their debut until the following year of 1989 in the film Godzilla vs. Biollante. And even original monsters, including the new playable creature, Solomon, and the main thread of the story, Red. Red is a terrifying looking kaiju with spider legs and a human face with empty eye sockets. This creature absolutely towers over Godzilla and is far too powerful for the king of all monsters to beat, even with the help of several other kaiju on his side. As the game progresses, it shows visuals that wouldn't even be possible for a normal NES game, plus gruesome and disturbing imagery, all leading to the final face-off against Red. The only disappointing thing about the story is the ending, which I won't spoil, as you should still give the story a read for yourself.
Every copy of Mario 64. 2020 was a big year for Mario 64. We had the release of Super Mario 3D All-Stars, the Giga Leak that revealed hidden content of that game, and a new horror story to go alongside it. One that's unique in that it's just a simple premise that others can build upon using videos and mods. Every copy of Mario 64 is about an experimental AI created by Nintendo and put inside Super Mario 64 cartridges. This AI would somewhat alter the game to fit your style. It would change values, minor placement differences, and its own difficulty to give you, and only you, your own experience. This is why trying to play someone else's copy would feel off for some reason. But this AI is stronger than most realize, as it even takes in what the player wishes was in the game. The sheer desire to see the character Wario in Super Mario 64, a title where he is not even referenced, got the AI to attempt to add him into the game itself. But this version was incomplete and a tormented shadow of his greedy self. This version of Wario is referred to as the Wario Apparition, as he is either just an entity made by the AI or a personified version of the AI taunting the player. Many have taken this premise and have attempted to build upon it by making videos of modded versions of Super Mario 64 to show off their personalized versions. One of the most prominent users is Greenio, who has made dozens of videos pertaining to the topic, and has even inspired others to make similar videos about other games, such as how the creepypasta Sonic.exe was able to make a temporary comeback through Sonic-related personalized videos.
Bendrowned. What else were you expecting for the #1 spot? Even many of those who dislike video game creepypastas, or even the entirety of creepypasta in general, have shown respect for this one story. It does everything right in a pool of hyper-realistic blood from cliché-filled stories. Bendrowned, a story that dates back all the way to 2010 and only recently ended in 2020, starting as a video game creepypasta about someone who receives his friend's old Nintendo 64 and attempts to find new games for it. He got some titles like Pokemon Stadium and GoldenEye 007 while garage sale hunting. He finds a particular house with only one table set up with different objects, including a copy of The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. It doesn't take long for the game to start acting strange, from visual glitches, textures breaking, NPCs referring to the main character as Ben rather than Link, even if he wasn't using the save file that came with the game called Ben, and most peculiar of them all is a statue that looks similar to that of Link warping around the player constantly. Unlike most game pastas, the story actually shows what's happening, rather than simply describing it through text, using mods to create what's needed for the right scene. And instead of stuff like hyper-realistic blood, or the number 666 by the production company name, it instead manipulates what's already in the game, to make a completely different narrative, and makes it less about the game or the main character, but instead the story it wants to tell. This is the direction I wished more video game creepypastas would take, which is why it's #1 on the list. Throughout the years, the story would unravel more and more, resetting worlds, a godlike deity named the Father, and so on. Jaduzable, the YouTube channel behind the series, has every single video on Bendrowned. Creator Alex Hall has made an unforgettable experience, using an equally as unforgettable game to tell his story.